Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome in the building. This is your boy Big Mike. Welcome to Swish for Real. I got my boy Boogey Bob in the building. What's up, Boogie?
Yo, 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 Big Mike, having a great week, enjoying the cooler weather.
Man, it's turning fall fast, man, and I got leaves falling like it ain't nobody's business. And I would like to introduce y'all to one of my favorite coaches, man. He's from my alumni, man, North Dallas High School. Jeremy Mason, Coach Mason. What's up, man? Tell the people a little bit about yourself, man.
Man, what's up? Man, Coach Mike told you my name, man. Coach Mason. I've been at North Dallas High School now since 2012, man. So going on 12 years. Uh, Coach boys basketball now. I've been doing that for the last 8 years, but I've also had my time over on the girls side, and we see girls basketball is blowing up, man. So maybe I need to consider going back over. But a little bit about myself, man. I'm originally from La Mesa, Texas, small town out in West Texas. I come from a basketball family, man. Really, my dad played high major basketball. Jerry Mason, he's the head basketball coach out at Ennis. My uncle just retired, man, from Texas City, coaching boys
Nice.
basketball out there. Have another uncle that coached Lamarck High School for a while. So basketball runs in the blood. And actually, I have a cousin, man. Shout out to him, Marcus Herford, who's the head volleyball coach out at Jackson State, man. So our whole family is, man. And shout out to my cousin Brittany Mason too, man. She's at Sam Houston as an assistant girls basketball coach.
Nice.
Yeah, just basketball runs deep in our family, man. And so outside of that, not too much going on with me, man. Just basketball and ball is life, baby.
Facts, man. Again, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Nice.
What were your thoughts about the season NBA wise in 2024? Because I know we want to talk about who was the best six man, but just speak on what you think the season was for you. What were some of the surprises, and what kind of could be better going into 2024-25 season?
Super credible person to ask. I mean, I'm a subscriber of NBA League Pass probably for 2 years in a row, to be
Nice.
honest. And so I would say that last year, my League Pass team of the year to watch was the Milwaukee Bucks. Clearly,
Okay.
with Dame making the changeover
Yeah.
to Milwaukee, I really followed them. But I'm not just a guy that watches the good teams, right? I think the year before, I was interested in the Chicago Bulls and the season that they were having. The year
DeMar
before,
DeRozan. Yep.
DeMar DeRozan, what he was doing. The year before, I was really interested in the way that the Charlotte Hornets were playing. Thought they
LaMelo
were playing
Ball.
really good ball early on. But I did think that last year it was a fair season, but I thought it was one kind of similar to what we may experience this year, where you just have a really good juggernaut of a basketball team in Boston, really deep team. And I think the Western Conference will be a lot like it was last year, where we don't know who's coming out of there. So, but I thought a really good season all in all. I loved seeing the Mavericks come out of the West, right?
Hmm.
Especially after the talks of whether Kyrie and Luka could play together, and then even the changes that they made mid-year, bringing in PJ and some of those guys. Man, I thought it really shifted the way that they played defensively. And man, we had a pretty good NBA Finals. I would have liked for it to be a little more competitive, but again, Boston was just a juggernaut, man. Tough
Not
to stop.
facts. So with those teams having such great seasons last year, it was always somebody that they love to come off the bench and give them what they needed as far as keep the game flowing and not be stagnant. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the six man of the year candidate for 2025. If you had to choose one candidate for the six man of the year for this coming season, just give me your top three or maybe top five. Who you think will be that six man? Because there's a lot of great players that I can name off the top of my head, but I want to hear what you think as far as who would be your top three, top five, six man of the year for 2025.
Yeah, I thought about this heavily. I think leading the way will be Naj Reed, who won last year. He's a big man that comes off the bench for Minnesota. And the reason why I think that is because we kind of know what Minnesota's starting lineup will look like already this
Yeah.
year, right? And we know Nas will be coming off the bench for one of those two bigs, and that'll be the three big rotation that they have. And they'll also win a lot of games, and winning helps you win awards. But there were some other guys that I don't know what their role will be this year. But let's say in Miami, if Tyler Hero comes off the bench there, he'd be a candidate for sure. I think another guy to really look out for is Malik Monk, who was a finalist last year as well. Because Sacramento should improve. I'm not saying that they had a bad season last year, but I think they had no expectation the season before. And so they kind of, that was the light the beam year. And then last year they had a little more expectation. And so I think we were a little harder on them, in the media as fans, we expected a little more. But I think coming into this year, they may be a little bit more of a forgotten team again. And so I think with that being said, bringing in DeMar DeRozan, clearly he'll replace Harrison Barnes in the starting lineup. And I know Malik had to start a lot last year because Kevin Huerter was out.
Yeah.
So I think he'll go back to his original six-man of the year role, and they'll also be fighting for a top 6 spot in the West. And so if that's the case, I think Malik Monk will have, his fair share of things to say for six-man of the year. But those would be my top 3 guys. It would be Naz Reid, Tyler Hero, and Malik Monk. If I had to round out with 4 and 5, I would go Bobby Portis as of right now. And after that, man, I don't know. I'm real interested to see where what Boston decides to do with their lineup. I know Porzingis is out. But last year, they had an opportunity to either bring Horford off the bench or, start Porzingis. I don't know what they're going to do, but look for them to have one of those guys step into a 6-man role as well.
And your thoughts on Russell Westbrook? Do you think he'll become a starter or come off the bench?
Good call. Very interesting, only because they lost KCP.
Yeah.
And so, and really, I think Denver is in a flux right now. And so I don't know, but that's a really good call. And if he is a 6-man for them, he'll definitely be in the running, I would hope. But you know what else? Those other guys we named are guys that are going to put up numbers. I think Russell Westbrook might be a guy for them if he does come off the bench that just comes in and changes pace, kind of like the way that he did in with the Clippers.
The Clippers, yeah.
To where, he was valuable as a 6-man, but those other guys we're talking about, they could be starters for other teams. And so I don't know if Russell have that type of impact where he'll be considered a 6-man of the year, but a great call, though, for somebody that, could be on a winning team, but yet come off the bench and provide a lot of energy.
Gotcha. And for the audience, if you had to describe what a 6-man have to accomplish to earn that title, what would it be that you would say they'd have to do to accomplish that title?
Well, it's different at every level, but at the NBA level, essentially, most of those guys that come in as 6-men are able to put the ball in the hole. From your Lou Williams of the world to your Jamal Crawfords of the world, even your Manu Ginobili's of the world when he was playing. Those guys can really fill it up. And even with Naz Reid last year, he does the same. He's a little more versatile defensively than those other guys. But I do think that's what you look for at that NBA level, somebody that can come in and add, scoring to the table. Whereas at the high school level, right, which is what I coach, you're kind of looking for somebody that can change the way the game is being played, change the pace of the game, bring energy, right? You're not really looking to win an award in a sense. And a lot of times, like, for example, I'm going to have somebody that probably could be a starter, but it's not going to be a good fit for us in that starting lineup. So when that person comes off the bench, I am looking for a complete change of pace. But I think at every level you are looking for a 6-man to do something different. But at that NBA level, which is kind of what we're talking about, you want those guys to be able to fill it up, man. Put the ball in the hole.
And I always thought like with a six man, and I'm thinking of Nas Reed. Nas Reed plays offense and defense, so I'm thinking if you could play both, that will probably get you the title faster than just playing offense. Do you agree?
I do again, but I also think that's a luxury at the NBA level, right? To get a guy that plays both sides of the ball, and then he's not a starter for you. Right?
Yeah,
They call those guys two-way players, and it's rare that you bring those guys off the bench. So it really is a luxury for Minnesota. Not only is he a solid individual defender, but as a team, they're a really good defensive unit. And so I think that he may look better there than other places defensively because they play solid team defense. And so I think that really stood out for him. But man, it would just be a luxury, to be honest, to have somebody that's two way coming off the bench for you. Those guys are typically in the lineup starting.
nah, facts. Bob, your thoughts on the same thing? Who you got as far as your top three or maybe top five as far as the 6 man of the year for 2024-2025 season?
Well, I'll get to those. I want to tap into something that Coach Mason just said. THJ, Tim Hardaway Jr., a lot like Nas Reed. When they play second string, they're usually more talented than the other team's second string. But when you put them in the starting lineup, they tend to crack, fold, fumble. So Nas Reed is in a great role on another team where he has to be the lead. I don't think you would see him excel as much. So there's a lot of players that like that when they're a starter, they're not so they can hang, but when they go against the other team's second team, they just shine. So
Mm.
uh, I had Malik Monk in there. So uh, Coach Mason, we have a saying: leave a little bit of meat on the bone. So thanks for leaving some meat on the bone.
Yes, sir.
I have two guys that really could come out of nowhere and be six man. Alex Caruso
Facts.
and
Awesome.
for Oklahoma. He's a defensive player, and if you leave him open, he can hit the shot. And Max Strus for Cleveland.
Another one I thought about.
I want to Max Strus for some reason. You know who I would put above Max Strus, and you might already have him on your list. I would say Jose Alvarado, man. Jose is like a two-way player to me.
Yeah, I like him, and I like that Jaquez guy that's in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that the player you mentioned might become a starter because they don't have it. I wouldn't be surprised. Everybody's counting Clay as a starter, but I think in some respects they may start Najee Marshall if Clay winds up becoming your sixth man and becoming, the next coming of Vinny Johnson and your microwave or your Peja when Peja was on the championship team and came in and just bombs away, or Vince Carter came in and bombs away. So if Clay's not starting, he should be in the running.
But see, with that salary he's earning, you don't think they would start him though? I mean, I agree with you. I would like to see him come off the bench, but that salary tells me that's starting salary.
Well, Coach Kidd doesn't pay attention to the salary as far as who he plays. It's more matchup and what he wants to run. He'll begin the season as a starter, but I think it's going to depend on where they can maximize his utility and his minutes. So he may be one of those like THJ, start in a pinch, but then be that guy that can dominate on the second team. Then I have these two players I'm going to mention play the same position. So one of them probably going to start, and the other one's going to come off the bench. But watch for Houston with Cam Whitmore or Jeff Green. Whoever's coming off the bench there is going to have some really, really good numbers.
I like Cam Whitmore, though.
Man, we all do. Boogey Bob is really killing this right now, man. Hey, listen, I want to touch on a few things. So, one with the Klay Thompson situation, I can see what Boogey is talking about because ultimately, who is Klay gonna guard? If you left to guard three big wings all night long, that can be a wear and tear. And like Boogie said, man, it might be a little better for the team for him to move to the second unit, let a better defensive player like Najee start, and then kind of let Clay come off the bench and do his thing versus those second units.
I agree.
Otherwise, you are kind of putting a lot of pressure on him defensively to guard those larger wings at 6'7", 6'6", and also not the same Clay Thompson we see make all defensive teams early on. So, really good call right there. The Jose Alvarado, he's got to stay healthy, right?
Yeah, they got to manage his minutes. And when Mike and I were coaching, I had this saying. People phrase it differently, but I always said legs go, shot go.
Yeah.
And so with Clay, you got to manage those minutes, whether starter or off the bench. You got to for him to be effective as a shooter. You got to make sure his legs are still good under him. And you mentioned about high school, what to look for. We coached in the rec league, so we had some players play on the freshman team and then later on made varsity. But in the rec league, what we looked for is we didn't put our 4 best players to start the game. We usually split them in pairs. In the first quarter, we had 2 good players, and in the second quarter, we had 2 good players. In the third quarter, we might put all 4 together. But the thing we looked for was not only who they played good with, but that first person off the bench. It's somebody who could run the team, somebody who could lead, somebody that all the other players followed. And he might not score and might not rebound, but you could trust him with the ball. And if the other team pressed, they were in trouble. And that's what we looked for somebody coming off the bench in the rec league, was that leadership, somebody who could calm the storm down and be that glue to keep it. And then when it comes third quarter, just just full blast, full court press, let them go. We called that our death squad when we put all 4 of our best players in.
Absolutely. And I think with those 6 men, you want to have that issue as a coach at the end of the game where it's like, is that 6 man really a starter essentially? And so like, I think that's what Minnesota ran into last year quite a bit, where it's like, do I stay with Rudy and be really good defensively? Or do I go with Nas and I have the flexibility to be able to space both bigs? And so I think that's a good problem to have as a coach. And you want your 6 man.
Yeah, with Minnesota this year, I worry whether the rookie point guard halfway in the season may take Mike Conley's job. Then you got guys like Mike Conley and Kyle Lowry who are coming off the bench. Correct. And they're better than most other teams' starter, but they're your second team point guard. It's like they in the NBA, they're always looking at point, what is when so and so's off the court, how efficient is offense and what kind of points. And that's been the Achilles heel for the Mavericks. When Luka's off the court, they didn't have that guy that could come off the bench or even start and relieve those minutes. So you've got to have somebody not necessarily score, but just not let the get it out of control. It's like at least keep you in the game.
That's right.
And one thing I've known for fact is like, it doesn't matter who starts the game; it matters who finished the game. So if your 6 men is actually doing the thing and making sure that you make it to the fourth quarter and you have a tight game, and he's not messing up and turning the ball over, whoever finished the game is basically going to help you win the game.
And you know who you just described? Derek Lively last year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If he doesn't become a starter, if Kidd leaves him in that backup role, then Derek Lively, maybe even Gafford, might become that kind of guy. Because Lively was the guy that finished the game. THJ'd come in and see if he was hot, but 2 years ago when they made the Western Conference Finals, he was injured. But in crunch time, end of the game, you'd see Josh Green before you saw Tim Hardaway Jr.
Oh yeah.
even Hardy, you saw Hardy before you saw Hardaway Jr.
And speaking of Hardaway, man, his dad was pushing him to play so many minutes, but he only had one good game, and that's when they was blowing out Boston and game 5. when he was blowing out Boston, he was what, set a
It's game
record for
four. In game four, he had like 5 of 5 from 3-point range. That just
yeah.
proves the point. I've said this about Hardaway Jr., and I love THJ. Under pressure, he cracks. When there's no pressure, he plays free. And he did the same thing at Michigan. Uh, when the going get tough, he just doesn't hang in there.
Now facts, and I think his issue was he thought he had handles. He thought he was Kyrie Irving out there, but he was not, and he got pulled a lot of the
You're
time.
cracking me up, Coach Mike.
He
I'm
shoots a
just
lot,
like,
man. He shoots a
His
lot of.
handles were about like KP, like the defensive man is going. I'm going to eat now. I'm going to eat now. Oh, he's trying to dribble. I'm going to eat.
Right. Yep. And he was one he's taking transition pull-up threes off the dribble.
Yeah.
Very
If you
hard.
hit him, I don't mind. I don't mind a transition pull-up three. Jason Terry used to do it. You miss them, everybody hates them. They make them, everybody loves them.
Everybody loves him. Yeah, that's right. He's really actually tough to get a read on. You kind of wonder what the distrust was between Jason Kidd, but like Boogey Bob said, it might have been a situation where they just felt he wasn't comfortable in big situations in games.
now he turned the ball over too much. That was his problem. He would dribble into traps. He would dribble into two defenders. It was like, bro, get off the ball. And then when he got the ball in his hand, he didn't pass it. He shot it, and that was really pissing Jason Kidd off. Like, bro, why you keep shooting?
And I don't think we would have had a problem had he not been making $18 million a year. I think that was the other issue. The money's just not matching the production, baby. It's just not. And so ultimately you end up in Detroit, but I'm like you guys, I like THJ. But yeah, I think he'll probably play well this season if he gets run in Detroit, man. There's no pressure over there. Like,
yeah, no,
there's no pressure and easy to grab statistics on a bad team.
Correct.
The quintessential sixth man of the year, you go back a few years when Dirk was playing, was Lou Williams. When
I was thinking about him, but I was thinking more like Jamal Crawford, though. Jamal Crawford.
Jamal too, both of them. Jamal and Lou Williams. And I think Lou Williams won a couple and Jamal Crawford won a couple. Six man a year.
Absolutely.
They call him J Crossover.
Crossover.
Hey, so I have a question for you, Big Mike. Can you name the two Maverick players, not current, two Maverick players that have won six man of the year?
Wasn't it Jason Terry won?
No.
Huh. Hold on. Let me think.
We'll see if Coach Mason knows them.
My brain is working.
You did a story on one of them.
Roy Tarpley?
Yep.
That's way back. So dang, I couldn't even get you. What
and
you
do
got?
You know who the other one was?
Maybe.
I'll give you a hint. Him and Vince Carter came in the same year, and they were traded for each other. Antoine Jameson.
He won as a Maverick?
Yep. And they traded him that year to draft. They traded him for the pick and Jerry Stackhouse, and that pick was Devin Harris.
Two great names. Antoine was a bucket, man.
Right. Now you see why we got Coach Boogey Bob on the show, because he be coming up with stuff. I was like, why you challenging my thought process right here? I gotta figure that one out.
That's a tough question.
Right. So like next year, they just started this 2 years ago, the in-season tournament. Bob, that was something that you wanted to talk about more so. The in-season tournament for next year. What are your predictions on that? Do you think it's going to be LA again? Because I mean, my thought process, I like it, but it doesn't benefit teams in general because those records don't go on your total record. It's a total different beast when it comes to the in-season tournament. What are your thoughts on and predictions who's going to win it for next year?
So there were two philosophies. One was trying to win it, and the other was we don't care about it. We'll still play a home game. The ones that get you to the tournament count against your record. The tournament the semifinal finals don't count against your tournament. So I think you're going to see some teams change their philosophy where they're not trying to win by, if they're tied with another team, it's point spread, how many they win. I
Mm-hmm.
think you're going to see some teams this year. They're going to go, we don't need that extra however many 50,000 or 100,000 you get for a player. They would rather have their rest and be ready for May and June. So I think you're going to either have one or two things. You're going to have a team that's young that wants to prove themselves, or
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have an up and comer that's going to come in. I think your veteran teams, your top four on both sides, are really going to just kind of like, eh. So having said that, in the West, I have OKC and Minnesota, one of those two, because I think they both have something they want to prove, especially after not doing it in the place. And only one game separated them from being number one last year. So I think they want that badge of honor, of being able to do it. In the East last year, you had Indiana come out of nowhere. So I think you're going to have two teams. You're going to have Philly that wants to prove that they belong with all their new starters and PG 13. And then if they're healthy, I wouldn't be surprised that the Cavaliers are like the Pacers were last year, where they just kind of like, you know what, we want to show that we belong. Uh, I think getting into the tournament, yeah, you get to go to Vegas, you get a few extra. It's a detriment. Most of the players would just rather stay home and play a home game or travel, less wear and tear on their legs.
Now, I was going to bring it back to what you said about the young teams that won it, and they kind of remind me exactly what Indiana did last year. Again, they came out of nowhere and they proved that they can play pretty good, especially with their point guard play. And one of the six men of the year was Connolly, and he was actually balling out of control in that. And I was like amazed of how he played. But I think with the younger teams, and I'm thinking Orlando, that's when I would believe will probably win it will get there for the East. And for the West, I'm not quite sure. The West is wide open, but I agree with you in regards to how they perform.
I like that Orlando call. That's pretty tough. That's a good one. That's a real good one. I actually think Indiana will try to run it back. I think that they enjoyed that. I think that they got quite a bit of publicity for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it hurt that team at all, right? Because ultimately they end up making a run in the playoffs as well. So, but I like that Orlando call. That's a really good team to throw out there. I think some teams in the West to look for, Memphis Grizzlies, right? John Morant coming back. Also, Boogey Bob mentioned Cam Whitmore earlier. What about the Houston Rockets as a team that gets hot for the in-season tournament? And then a team that you mentioned also, Big Mike, Jose Alvarado and them Pelicans, man. If Zion is healthy, that's a team that can make a run in the in-season. But I do agree with Boogey Bob. For those that have championship aspirations, essentially they'll just play the games like they're any other game.
And going back to the Pelicans,
I left off Sacramento because I didn't want to have too many on the list. But Sacramento, Memphis, or those got to prove it. And New Orleans upset a lot of people to get to the semifinals.
Absolutely.
Nice. And back to you, Coach Mason, in regards to not Sacramento, but the Pelicans. Brandon Ingram, you think they'll keep him? Because he's not. I mean, to me, he's a good player, but he's not superstar quality yet. For whatever reason, he's been balling, but it's like he's not. He's inconsistent in my opinion. I love his game. But I don't like the college he went to. I'm a Duke hater, but I mean, to get to the in-season tournament, I don't think he'll push him there. What are your thoughts on his performance as far as what he's doing now?
Yeah, first and foremost, no disrespect to Brandon Ingram. I think that he definitely is an NBA caliber player, an all-star caliber player when healthy. I don't think it's a good fit with that New Orleans team because that team really lacks shooting. And BI is more of an old school kind of mid-range pull-up guy, ISO basketball type of player. And a lot of teams have kind of moved on from that style of play. And so I think that they will try to move off of him, but I think it'll be extremely difficult because He's in a contract year, I believe. And so, whoever trades for him is going to have to re-sign him, and it's not going to be cheap. But then you're bringing in someone that is playing a style of ball that the NBA is kind of slowly shying away from a little bit. And so I just think for him, it's just a bad fit on a team. I would like to see him somewhere like Atlanta, where they don't really have an identity yet, but they do have some really good talent over there. But he has to be somewhere where, either move to a 6-man role where we can ISO you and play that style of play, or maybe end up somewhere like Portland, maybe, where they just don't really have an identity offensively and you can provide that. But it's very hard to move him right now. His contract, I think that he would be unwilling to play the 4 position, which would give him a little bit of an advantage. But then on the other end, I think that he would struggle immensely playing against guys that are, kind of hard-nosed. Draymond Green, guys like that, even Isaiah Stewart in Indiana, he's not going to win with those. I mean, in Detroit, excuse me. He's not going to want to deal with those guys on the other end of the floor. So, again, I think a really good ball player, but a bad fit on New Orleans team, especially, now that you brought in DeJounte Murray. Again, a really good guard, a two-way guard, but not known to be a great shooter. So you bring in someone else that just, that team needs floor spacers to play around Zion and those guys.
Gotcha. So for
Coach Mason, when you're talking about Brandon Ingram, my immediate thought was Jim Jackson game from the 80s, 90s, early 90s.
Absolutely.
But Ingram filled the role when they let Julius Randle go. Brandon Ingram kind of filled the role that Julius Randle had on that team.
Absolutely.
Now, to end the conversation on the in-season tournament, Coach Mason, your 2 teams to make it there, and who you have winning out of those 2 teams.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and steal from you, man. I like that. I like that Orlando. I like that call. That's a really good call of a team in the East that is looking to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. And they brought in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and I know that they're going to harp on winning. They're not going to care if it's in-season tournament, whatever. We just need to set the culture to win. So I like them, but I also like that Memphis Grizzlies call. I just think that Ja coming back really puts that team back in the mix, and what a way to put on display if you're able to make it to the finals of that in-season tournament. And I'm going to go with the Grizzlies in that game.
Yeah, because that rookie for Grizzly, Edey, who's going to stop him?
That combination of him and Ja, and really, again, they're used to playing with the big, and they're going to be able to play double big with him and Jaren Jackson because essentially Jaren can space. But, yeah, I think by mid-year, and I don't know if Brandon Clark is coming back either for them, and if he is, they're going to be a load to deal with, man. So, yeah, I kind of have them as a team to look out for, especially for something like the in-season tournament.
Yeah, and to say if I predicted, I would think it would be for the West, San Antonio. I think they're going to push forward. I think they're going to win the in-season tournament. Now, to do that, that'll propel them to get to maybe the 8th spot in the playoffs for the West. But I got them winning it, and who they play against, I'm thinking it's going to be New York. New York might be that sleeper team because they got all of the Villanova threes now there. You know what I mean? They got everybody from Villanova playing for them.
If the NBA gets your prediction for that game, they're going to love it, right? I mean, Wemby and then the New York Knicks, one of the most storied franchises. I mean, I think the NBA would take that. That's money, baby. That's right. That is right.
It's spread it out, baby.
That is absolutely correct. Good calls. Facts. Great conversation. Good calls. Really good calls. Really good teams.
Appreciate it. Now, this the next topic, we're going to talk about a person who played 13 seasons in the NBA. He played for the Minnesota Timberwolves for most of those. Well, he actually retired in 2005, and he was an All-Star in 94, 95, 96, 94, 95, 97, and 2001. And he had some controversy in his lifetime. And this player we're talking about is Latrell Sprewell. Now, we're going to bring it back to you, Coach Mason. Back in the days when he was playing specifically for Minnesota, when he was doing his thing there, what are your thoughts about his career, and what kind of legacy did it leave for himself as far as a player in general?
Yeah, so context, I'm 38 years old.
Youngster?
So when Spree came into the league, I was 8 years old.
Dang.
Yeah, but so I remember him playing with the Warriors. And then I remember the PJ Carlesimo situation happening.
Yep.
And then shortly after going to be with the Knicks.
Yep.
Right. And had an opportunity to play in the finals in that lockout year. And then I was actually, so after Michael Jordan, my second favorite player is Kevin Garnett. And Mike had already retired. And so I watched Kevin heavily. And what I think about Spree is a great third option on a team. But I don't want to diminish his legacy in terms of his play. 13 seasons in that league is no joke. And also, too, as a young player, my uncles and other guys that were around the game had said that Latrell Sprewell, end to end, in terms of speed, is one of the fastest players that they've ever seen play. But again, not a great shooter, very athletic, but I do think just a great third option on a team. And that Minnesota team really needed him. And but I thought it was really Sam and KG that kind of KG, then Sam will say, that carried the load. But I thought that having Sprewell out there gave them a bit of toughness and edge, right, on the wing, and then gave them a lot more speed and athleticism. And in regard to his legacy, definitely not a Hall of Famer, right? But if we are looking, let's say we're looking back at this 20 years from now, I wouldn't mind him. Clearly, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he did average almost 20 a game for his career in those 13 seasons. So I do think that, and he also, we forget about it, I believe Spree made an All-NBA team, if I'm not mistaken. And he also made an All-NBA defensive team in one of those years. So, I mean, but you are talking about 93, 94. And another point to put out there, too, not to diminish him or discredit, but those are the years that Mike left the game. And so that two guard spot was really open for the taking in a sense. Clyde was kind of on his decline a little bit. And I think the NBA was looking for new young talent at that position, man. And Spree provided that athleticism, that flair. And my last thing to say about him, too, that we have to give him credit for, is Spree is somewhat of a cultural icon in the African-American community. We forget about the rims. Those were Spree.
Oh, yeah, the spinners.
The spinners. And, you know, we even watched wrestlers today, John Cena. Those people wore spinning chains. Spree, off the floor, was an amazing businessman, and I don't think that we gave him enough credit for that. I don't even think that we were paying attention to that stuff back then. So if you're asking me, Spree is an absolute legend, but there are levels to legendariness, okay?
Right.
And so I want to give him his flowers, but I also want to put into perspective, you know, there are levels to things, but man, very, very, very good NBA player.
So let me ask you this question, though, because I know he had two controversial issues that happened to him in his career. Number one was the PJ Carlesimo's situation.
Who recruited my father and sat in our trailer, my grandmother's trailer, and tried to get my dad to come to Seton Hall. But he ended up going down the road to Texas Tech. But so yes, PJ Carlesimo, yes, sir.
Carlesimo, thank you. And the other one, number two, is when he was talking about the amount of money he was going to get paid wasn't enough to feed his family. So those two things kind of tarnish his legacy, in my opinion, in a little bit. Not saying he doesn't have a true legacy, but I think those two things kind of put an asterisk on what people think about Latrell Sprewell. You think that's an agreeable point?
Tarnish is tough, right? Because ultimately, when we're talking about basketball, I just kind of went through everything he's done for the game.
Right.
I think that the PJ Carlissimo issue was one that the media loved, comedians loved. People made jokes about that stuff, although be it not funny at all, right? Especially I'm now in PJ's shoes. So not funny. But I do think that we all raised an eyebrow when he talked about the money situation, and ultimately we didn't see him anymore after that.
Yeah, thanks.
That was it. And so the NBA kind of said for us, like, hey, we're not going to pay you this amount of money. We don't feel like this is what you're worth. And so, hey, we're going in a different direction. And we don't talk about him enough as somebody that, although be it that might not be the face that you want to be a part of, but you don't hear that often. I think Larry Hughes might have been another person that came after saying something similar, but we didn't see Larry anymore either. So clearly he didn't learn from Spree. But I wouldn't say that it tarnished his legacy, because even Michael had the gambling issue.
Yeah.
Kobe had his situations. We've seen guys have issues throughout the leagues, but we still look at them as legendary based upon play and what they've done. Unfortunately, Spree hasn't won at the level of those guys, so we'd be more prone to take a shot at a guy like Sprewell. But I wouldn't say tarnished, but it definitely made us, question his thought process when it came to that money, for sure.
That was a great answer, man. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah,
Bob,
sure.
your thoughts on the legacy of Mr. Latrell Sprewell?
Well, a little bit what Coach Mason said. A friend of mine, he said a team can handle one nutcase, but when they get two, it gets a little out of control. People remember Delonte Rest. If they weren't a Mavs fan, all they see him is getting arrested and his problems. Even Tarpley had his. But what Sprewell did was just at that time was not acceptable. Well, to punch a coach or chew out a coach.
Coach.
Nowadays that happens all the time. And I think what John Morant has done with flashing a gun in public is a lot worse than what Sprewell did. So. A lot of people looked at him as a nutcase. Larry Hughes is a great example there. He didn't give nobody a wet willy, but the first word I wrote down when I looked at this question was underrated.
Nice.
And here's why. His career numbers, like Coach Mason said, he played 15 years.
13
years. Career numbers, 18, 4, and 4. That's 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He was a 4-time All-Star. He made the NBA first team one time. He was on the defensive second team one time. And in 95-96, he was 8th in voting for Defensive Player of the Year. You don't, those are not shabby numbers. Maybe they're not Michael Jordan, or like last week we talked about Larry the Legend Bird, and the week before we talked about Magic. But I will say this: until last year, the only time Minnesota had gone to Western Conference Final was when Sprewell hooked up with Sam Cassell and Kevin Garnett in Minnesota. They couldn't get out of the first round.
Out of the first round. That's right, Bob. Yep.
He brought toughness. He didn't back down. And as it shows, he made first team, he made defensive second team, and he was voted in a Defensive Player of the Year. So he wasn't just a scorer. Today we'd be calling him a two-way player. He's not a clean version of PG-13, but that's the kind of player Latrell Sprewell was. he when he was playing for Golden State, the Mavs played him. I was like, I hated to see that guy on the court. Like, I want him on my team, to agitate the other guys, but I don't want to play against him. He he
Absolutely.
he was one of those guys you didn't want to see on the other side of the court. And when I was looking up some of the other stats, he is worth he made over 97 million in his career, and his biggest salary was only like 9 million. His net worth was over 100 million. So we hear a lot about the Allen Iversons and others that made a lot of money that are 30 for 30 about going broke, and a lot of players, Antoine Walker, filed for bankruptcy. But Sprewell was a lot smarter than what people thought. He, as Coach Mason referred to, he outside his business, he's done very well, but it's been on a very low key level. So I think Sprewell was underrated. He was that next tier below superstar and great, but better than average. He's the kind of guy that you would, if you didn't have another crazy guy on your team, he gave you the mental toughness and the glue to push you over. It was like having one of the Detroit bad boys on your team, but could score.
I like that. Yep.
So, Bob, let me ask you this question. In 2004, rather, they offered him, and this is Minnesota, 3 years, $21.4 billion. Why would he not, take that offer? And your team wasn't bad at the time, and that was going to keep you going forward for 3 years. I mean, $21 million.
Personally, I think the reason he turned it down had more to do with he was tired of the NBA and the politics and the way the game was going. He looked at playing overseas, but he'd had enough. And it's kind of like Barry Sanders retiring before, he was like 29, or Calvin Johnson retiring ahead of time. I think Sprewell just kind of looked at the landscape and said, for that kind of money, he goes, I want to still be able to walk when I'm 70, 80 years old. He's like, not worth it. He already had enough, and he had his business going, and he just kind of like, yeah, I'm done.
So that's the reason why he kind of vamped out on the league.
I think he felt undervalued. I really do. You got to think about it too. You're about 4 years after, maybe 6, that lockout. Mm-hmm. And we watched Kevin Garnett get a lot of money. I just think
wasn't he like 102 million at the time?
It was crazy.
Yeah, he was the first $100 million contract.
Correct. So I think that Spree felt undervalued, but it would be better if it was what Bob said, where he just was tired of the league and kind of had his own, business ventures outside and off the floor, and just kind of want to be able to walk. You know what I mean? And so I would go with Boogey Bob's answer over mine. But yeah, I do think that at that moment in time, he felt undervalued, especially if I know I'm a big reason as to why this team elevated from not being able to get out of the first round to now going to the conference finals. You could at least pay me $30 million over 3, and get me to that 10 instead of having me at 7. And I don't know what Sam was getting at that time or what other guards around were getting at that time. The money hadn't ballooned the way it has now, but hopefully it's what Boogey Bob said, man, and he just was tired of the league and ready to go.
No, I agree, man. I just don't see how he could not want to play for a good team that they had, and they made the playoffs. So I don't know if that's
they traded KG right after that contract too. About the time they were making the offer to Sprewell. The name that came up when they had comparisons to Sprewell was Jason Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great comp.
Yeah, I like Sprewell's game, but I wouldn't compare it to Jason Richardson though, because Jason Richardson To me, like, so you know how players play and they fluid with their moves. Jason Richardson wasn't fluid with his move. He was more of a stiff, but he can get where he needed to go, but he was stiff. Sprewell, on the other hand, he was fluid. You can see the fluidity of what he did when he was moving to the basket and trying to make a move to get where he needed to be. And Jason Richardson was nothing like that.
I think we forget what Jay Rich was at one time. He also in that Warriors uniform was scary when he was going, man.
He was, but
and
to me, he was stiff.
And then they're also kind of like sized as well.
Yeah.
They're probably, and we didn't really see Sprewell as athletic at that Minnesota stage of his career, but at this point he's 10 years plus in. But early Spree was like Jay Rich. He was above the rim. And we forget that, man. Great speed, great athleticism. I actually like the comp.
So Mike, if in today's NBA, if you had a Latrell Sprewell on the Mavericks, do you think anybody would be bumping and grinding and pushing Luka around?
As far as temperament, attitude, he reminds me of
ability, Mike. Defensive ability, baby.
he was Deshaun Stevenson as far as the Mavs 2011.
Yeah. Well, and if he was on the current Mavericks team, he would be the first guy to punch the other guy out, and he wouldn't care if he got thrown out of the game. He's like, "Don't you mess with my boy."
That's right.
Nah, facts. Nah, I agree with that, but I still think he was better in regards athletically, and then you mentioned that too, Coach Mason, that he was more athletic to me than Jay Richardson was. He was more explosive, in my opinion, because he had some highlights that people forget about. He was up above the rim too. Jason Richard was above the rim, but Sprewell was way more complete to me in the essence of shooting, defending, and playing both sides of the court, and when it comes to that position. So yeah, I ain't tripping on that one. So with the shooting part of things, like he was a great shooter, and we're gonna switch the topic to what player has the best shooting range, and we're gonna talk about let's talk about from history when it comes to shooting range. There's been some great shooters out there in the league. Bob, we're gonna start with you and talk about what player has the best shooting range if you think about it from present to past.
I didn't look at so much the past players because they didn't shoot the 3-pointers much, but I have 4 names written down. I'll leave a little bit of meat on the bone in case Coach Mason has these. But when I think of shooting range, I mean, long before Night Night was popular, Oklahoma City Dame goes, bye-bye. When he hits dang near a half, they call him Logo Lillard for a reason. Because he can hit from half court. You had to pick him up at half court line. So when we're talking about range, Stephen Curry's compared as the best shooter the NBA's ever seen. Like Larry Bird was pretty damn good. But when we talk about just shooting range, Dame Lillard's at the top for me. Now I have 4 players, but he's at the top.
So he's number 1?
Damian Lillard.
Okay.
Well, even when the NBA players, when he hit that shot against Oklahoma City and limited on I don't have Twitter, but it was all over Twitter. It was, damn, Dame.
Yeah, Dame I second what Bob is saying. Like Bob, I do have 3-4 names on the list, but shooting, like I actually really take these shots. I work on these shots every day and I shoot them regularly. There's no lean forward or like some type of push or haul shot. It's actually, that's Dame Dollar all day long. I actually think his range extends further than what Stephen Curry's range does.
And if you look at Stephen Curry, you're talking about shooting motion. A lot of Stephen Curry, he's moving into the shot and using momentum and moving forward when he releases the ball. Dame was more of almost like a set shot with that kind of range.
Straight up, straight down. Dame is shooting no shots, straight up, straight down. Absolutely. But we do have to mention those other names, Bob. I'm gonna let you go. You left some meat on the bone, but I'm pretty sure we have the same names.
So when he first came in the league, I don't remember what the show was. It was on ABC, and they were challenging. They called him Durantula at the time. But KD's got ridiculous range. And then it sounds homer, but you see this guy practice shots, not on the extent of Stephen Curry, but Luka hits half court shots like it's I was going to say a free throw, but he doesn't have a great free throw percentage. But I see him shoot from half court, during warm-ups and practice, and he's let's just say he's got some money out of the pocket of the coaches. He bets them every time like he's going to make it. It's a pretty good percentage.
Absolutely.
Especially when he hit that one off the scoreboard into the basket. I was like, what the hell?
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't have those two guys. Especially like later Durant is a little more of a mid-range guy at this point in time. But definitely has very good shooting range. I looked at this in a multitude of ways. Shout out to Dirk, man. I think Dirk had an ability to knock down shots with range, but it was because of the types of shots that he shot. It was like a shed shot, and he made it look so easy. So shout out to Dirk. But I think we have to mention Trae Young as one of these guys. Now, is he as efficient? No, but just the willingness to take and make those shots. And I'm not here to toot my horn or my family's horn, but
I did go to OU, so Trae Young's in that wheelhouse, along with Buddy Hield.
One of the first people I ever saw shoot volleyball line threes was my dad.
Oh, wow.
I mean, off of tips, and that's the first shot of the game. And crowds go crazy. I was born to high school parents, so I got a chance to see my dad in his collegiate years when I was a kid.
Oh, nice.
And I play the same way. So, like, I shoot a lot of long balls. And so when I'm watching these guys, when I'm watching Steph, when I'm watching Dame, when I'm watching Trae, watching them do it with the handle and off the dribble is overly sensational. And but I'm with Bob, man. I think the way that Dame is so straight up, straight down on this jumper, not leaning forward, not jumping forward, I think that title goes to Dame Dollar, man. Logo Lillard for a reason.
So there was a Mason that played for Oklahoma State and then later on Oklahoma City Thunder. Are you related to him?
Are we talking about Desmond Mason?
Yeah.
Out of Waxahachie. He is not related to us. But my dad did get a chance to coach against him, as Ennis and Waxahachie are rivals off of 287.
Oh, wow.
We had a chance to see Desmond Mason play, who had a pretty good NBA career. Wasn't bad,
Supersonics, right? Seattle Supersonics.
I don't know if he won a dunk contest, but I know he was in one and fared pretty well.
I think he did win that dunk contest.
Won.
I have to research.
You can tell your dad that my dad was an Oklahoma City Thunder season ticket holder, and he's got a couple Desmond Mason jerseys.
Oh, wow. That's a jersey we should have, right? At least it has our last name.
Yeah, it has your last name on it.
We need those jerseys, man. That Seattle Desmond Mason jersey would be an amazing jersey to have. We got
right now for sure, because that team is no longer in existence. I think they're going to try to put another squad out there eventually.
So I'm going to go off just because you brought that up. If you two had a choice to pick an expansion franchise in city, would you go back to Seattle or would you start one in Las Vegas?
For Seattle, no, because the economy in Seattle right now is dwindling because they're having so many issues with drug abuse, and the economy is out of range as far as being able to afford housing and stuff like that. A lot of companies are moving away from that area. So I don't know if it'll be feasible for them to even make money out there. Now, if you say Las Vegas, oh hell yeah, Las Vegas, they kind of like California in a sense, but they're not as expensive as California.
Sure.
Only thing I think would bother a lot of players is the heat. But other than that, yeah, I think it'll be successful in California. I mean, in Las Vegas.
No, very good point about Seattle and their economy.
And you, Bob, what are your thoughts?
Oh, Vegas all the way. We talked about that last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know, they hosted the in-season tournament, and when they legalized gambling for the NBA and that Supreme Court overruled, like Vegas is a hotbed. There's a reason the Raiders moved there, and there's a reason the Golden Knights got an expansion team. It's just a matter of time before Vegas gets a
Absolutely.
team.
And I
You know
think
what's a sleeper city?
Aces,
I was gonna say a sleeper city for me is Fort Worth, and people be sleeping on Fort Worth.
really.
Think
Yeah,
about it.
I mean, is there enough? I mean, you already have the legends up in Frisco. Is there enough support base there to tickets? There's enough market base, but
It just got to have a rivalry. I mean, like they're gonna rival against Dallas regardless. If you build that rivalry,
we got two. One direction of 35 up to Oklahoma City, the other one down to San Antonio.
and we got two down that south way, Houston and San Antonio. I'm
Yeah.
thinking Texas can actually hold 4 teams. I'm pretty sure of it.
Because Austin wouldn't be a bad place.
Nah, facts. You see that because they are a
So-
big city.
But Vegas does trump all of those, and I do think even having the Aces there has elevated the WNBA here over the years too.
No, facts. I agree
So,
with you. I think they did that.
Coach-
That was dope.
Coach Mason, I have a kind of follow-up question on the if there are 4 players standing on the court and you're a coach and you got the first pick, you have to pick between Dame, Curry, KD, and Luka. Who are you taking first?
Yeah.
I'm taking Stephen Curry because of his willingness to set screens off ball. Those other guys somewhat frustrate me when they don't have the ball in their hands, especially as a basketball coach, man. You know, guys passing the ball and just standing and watching, man, it blows me, man. I'm not going to lie. And so Steph's ability to play on or off the ball just makes him extremely dangerous. And again, I'm nowhere near these guys, but if you ask my friends how I played, they would compare me to Stephen Curry without the handle. But man, I love setting screens because I was typically going to be the one open. And so, man, I think Stephen being a guard screen setter, it really just separates his game from everybody else's. He doesn't stay still. And I love that about his game. Those other guys are clearly amazing with the basketball in their hands. And if I had to take one of those players to build my franchise around today, with age and all that being a factor, I'm going with Luka, hands down. He probably is the best one-on-one player in the world today.
Now, I agree with you on age-wise, but when you said Stephen Curry, that's the first thing that came to my mind too. I would pick him first to build around because he's not afraid to set the screen. He continuously moves without the ball. And you don't have a lot of players that want to do that nowadays. They want to move without the ball, and you get to your spot, you're gonna get the shot because the ball. If you got a great offense, the ball's gonna find you regardless. So if you're moving within that offense and flowing with it, you're going to find the shot no matter who touches it. But since he's willing, like you said, make screens and get to your spots, the ball's going to find you.
I'm going to tell you where Bob.
So I'll give you one stat that supports both of y'all on that. The average NBA player that's a starter and plays, good minutes, runs 3 to 5 miles. Care to guess how many miles Stephen Curry runs during a game?
It's got to be 15.
It's got to be
10 to 12 miles.
I was close.
But Bob, I want to give you credit for the question because they're different players, right? But I can make a case for Luka Doncic because in Steph's case, system matters and who you play with matters. You can almost go grab any four dudes and put around Luka Doncic, and he can will them to victories. That's how good he is with the basketball in his hand, man. And so
It's
now
kind
it
of like
was,
Moses Malone said when he's with Houston before he went to 76ers. He said full when he got to 76. He goes, I can get four guys off the playground and take you to the finals.
and it seems like Luka has that type of talent. We know Steph couldn't physically do that. He'd have to play with guys that like he plays with now. Draymond, guys that actually favor his game, where Luka is like, give me four dudes, four, like Bob said, man, let's get after it.
So you
Yeah,
think
I
Buddy
mean,
Hill will have an impact on the Golden State Warriors?
Who is that?
Buddy Hill.
One of my players today went to Buddy Hill's house and worked out today. Alaric Gurley is his name. Really good guard, moved in. Um, I don't know. I kind of liken Buddy Hill to a little bit of how we talked about THJ earlier. Don't know how he's going to perform in big moments. And then also, too, like, will you guard anybody? And that was Golden State's staple for years is playing defense.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And it was
yeah,
a defensive-minded team.
the double down pick that Stephen Curry uses, that Stephen Kerr brought after Mark Jackson, is similar to the old high low, but they run that back pick, and then after he gives up the ball, there's another pick, and the ball comes right back to him after he hits the 3-point line. And you see this in the rec league. It's like you find the best ball handler, you double team them to get the ball out of their hands.
correct.
And so they pass the ball, and the defense backs off. And what a good coach, what they teach them is pass it right back to the guy that's a good dribbler. And you see that with Stephen Curry is even if you guard him or you run around or, you fight through two screens, is he'll give up the ball to the guy on the wing and then go to the corner 3-point, and the ball comes right back to him, and away he goes. So that never stopped moving. It helps him because even when he gives up the ball, a little bit of Steve Nash, but when he gives up the ball, it isn't but a second or two, and it's right back to him. And the defense has already moved or collapsed or rotated.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Facts. Now, speaking of what you said earlier, Coach, with one of your players being worked out by Buddy Hill, which is an amazing thing. I'm glad that he's actually joining the tiers as far as helping high school players. But I'm going to bring this question to you first, Bob. What can improve as far as high school hoops and for lower tier schools who is not like your Duncanvilles, who are not like your soccer, these major schools, they always kind of make it to the top tier. What can improve as far as what needs to improve rather when it comes to getting these schools to make the playoffs? And you can think of schools that don't ever make the playoffs. What can improve?
Yeah,
Well,
if
I like that you asked this question because there's actually an article in the Dallas Morning News the other day about the wealth of talent. They're now starting to recognize the wealth of basketball talent in DFW area, and they go into the private academies, the Sierra Cans, the Mount Verdes, and all this. And the coach was talking about he has to recruit his own player to stay.
I read that article.
The number one thing they brought up in this article was Texas does not approve NIL money at the high school level.
Mm.
And so some of these kids that they're poor, their parents are like, hey, you can go to a prep academy. This will be like AAU. You play, you get to travel, you get to play against so many better players, you get more notoriety, more ability to be drafted, but you're also getting some NIL money. And so for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that's a disadvantage for any coach, whether it's 1A, 2A, all the way up to 6A. The other thing I see the difference is your your Allens, your Duncanvilles, your more, Katy down in Houston, your Austin Lake Travis, the facilities that they have and the number of coaches that they have, it's ridiculous. It's like South Oak Cliff doesn't have that kind of facility. They're lucky that they got a gym to practice in. Their weight room is, maybe a few free weights. They don't have strength and conditioning training. They don't have, the trainer is usually some student volunteer. So they don't have the facilities or the support. And what I think one thing, and you and I both believe in this, is that you got to get them when they're young and give them basketball IQ,
Yep.
so that when they get up to that level where they're a 4-star or 5-star level, they want to stay where they're at. Trey Johnson stayed at Kimball or Lake Highlands an extra year, uh, so that he could try to win a championship. And I can't remember that guy's name. I love Otero Morris, who plays at Texas and then went to Kansas. He was at Kimball, and he wanted to win a high school championship at his alma mater before he went to a prep school. So he actually had transferred, I think it was Oak Hill Academy, and transferred back to Kimball to go on. And they did win the state championship that year. So South Oak Cliff, Duncanville, Lancaster, they're always going to be able to recruit. But, your J.J. Pierce, Berkner, and some of the other schools that are 5A, 6A, they may have the enrollment, but they don't have near the facilities or support or coaching staff that these other schools have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Bob hit on two things that I was going to touch on. Honestly, I live it. And so, but the number one thing for me is a staff. And not only we don't need qualified coaches, man. We need dedicated, certified coaches.
So when you say certified, what do they need to be certified in?
There's a difference between being certified and qualified, right? For example, Coach Mike, you coach basketball. Bob, you coach basketball right now. Both of you are qualified coaches, right? Certified coaches have gone through. They're teachers, essentially, is what it is.
So let me put this point to you, because I actually on a board of a basketball nonprofit organization, and they want you to be USA basketball certified. Is that the type of certification that you're talking about?
So no, you actually have to be teacher certified in UAL. And so people look at me crazy, man. I literally have. So today was an A day for us, and I went athletics this morning by myself, no assistants, 30 kids.
Dang.
Right?
That's tough. That is really tough enough one with 10 kids.
How unfair is that to those kids? Right? And so then shortly after, I go teach a health class.
So go back to that 30 kids. How do you handle that? I mean, what are you, because I know having 30 kids at that particular time of day, how do you handle that, and how does you get through it without having these kids running wild?
Yeah, this is we could be here forever. I will say that I open the gym at 8 a.m. Okay, we have athletics at 8 a.m. We have athletics essentially from 9 to 10:40. But you've got to give kids time to get dressed. So I let them go about 10:15. So really, 9 to 10:15 is all you really get with them if they ride a bus or they can't get there at 8 a.m. But in the morning, I usually have, especially on an A-day, I usually have about 4 to 6 kids come in. I get right to it with individual stuff. Okay, so we work a lot of ball handling, just a lot of individual stuff.
Now, is this boys and girls or just boys?
This is just boys.
Okay.
But it is different grade level boys. So I might have a 9th grade, I might have a JV kid, I have a varsity kid. And I just try to, like I said, do what's best to fit everybody in that time.
So how do you control the training? Like, as far as, like you said, you have drills. How does that go? And when you're just the only person in there running these drills, how does that work?
Yeah, so essentially what I've done is, I don't know if you've been to our new gym.
I have not. I'm waiting to get there.
But we do have 6 baskets. Now, there is only one of me, so essentially I'm kind of rotating around. But as guys trickle in, whatever drill I'm on at that moment, I have those guys that come in and get in the same drill, just out a different basket. And ultimately, too, it is tough because, you know, if you're not standing around, they don't understand work ethic and things like that yet, right? It's almost like they're waiting for somebody to come and coach them. So that's
right.
I understand that too. But yeah, I may have to, with that first group, we've probably already been together for 20, 30 minutes at that point, if that makes sense. And then as kids trickle in, they just kind of go to baskets around. And whether that's partner shooting I'm having them doing, or I'm having them do a L cut, out, rip, whatever drill we're doing, they go to an empty basket, partner up, and do that together. And I just kind of make my rounds around, you know, and coach and teach. Then when I get through, I bring them all together and we do team stuff, right? We do full court stuff. I do I call it bulldog layups. It's essentially just an outlet pass to a wing, and we're trailing. We get into the nail, making the drop pass, layup, going both sides. But everybody can do that together. Then I go into like an 11-man drill where we can all do that together. Then I go into my teaching stuff, and this is where it gets a little tricky because I could only really, if like for example, I put we call it early, but essentially it's a secondary break. I put that stuff in today. I only got five guys out there demonstrating that I'm teaching with. Then I create another group of five, another group of five, another group of five.
Dang.
We stay, we do half court stuff. Then I say, I shoot the ball. Hey, y'all gonna run that 5-on-0 down the other end, next group on. And
so essentially you have students kind of assisting you in essence.
I do have a player or two that, you know, is basketball savvy or that has a little basketball IQ, but not necessarily. It is kind of, it's just me. And I have one assistant. He'll come over when football is over. But I won't lie to you guys, man. I coached last year my varsity, and I also coached my freshmen on Saturdays.
No way.
League, because it is just me, essentially.
So let me ask you this question, though. Is it that they don't want to staff more coaches, or the budget? What is it that's not giving you the type of staff you need?
Certified, qualified.
Oh, wow.
You all would
have to have a teacher certification in order to be able to coach as well.
And then you're asking a guy or a girl, female, to come be an assistant and only make $4,500 coaching basketball for the year.
And that's addition to what they're making a year.
Correct. It's a stipend is what it is.
Gotcha.
You know, I make $12,000 a stipend, not enough money, but those guys would be making $4,500. And that's stretched out throughout 12 months. So who wants to do that? And then right after you're bombarded with teaching class, and now, you know, you've got admin wanting certain things for you. So like, it really is difficult. But outside of that, I didn't want to talk too much about. There are other schools out here dealing with this, by the way. It's not just myself.
So Coach Mason, they Carrollton Farmers Branch, even though it's a rec league, they actually pass out, I think it's National Association of Coaches, to where you can go through their program and get certified that way.
You have to be a certified teacher.
Correct.
Coach.
Yeah.
You have to be a certified teacher. And I get a lot of calls. I get a lot of
So, you know, there's just, because I asked Coach Green, who's the 7th, 8th grade coach at Blaylock Middle School in Carrollton. Because it used to be you had, like when I grew up, at the coach, you had to be a teacher. And I asked him, so for Blaylock, I don't know about other schools, but Blaylock are the Carrollton Farmers Branch. As a coach, he does not have to be a teacher. He can do it if he wants. But
it's that, I think it's just because of that specific district. Am I correct on that, Coach Mason?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of charter schools where you do not have to be a teacher. Private schools are another one. I know guys, you know, back home where I'm from in Midland, Texas, who had oil field jobs, but they coached, you know, Midland Classical or Midland Christian, but they didn't teach on their campus. They just coached. But yeah, when you're UIL sanctioned, you have to be a certified teacher, and we're under the UIL umbrella. And you run into that, man. Who wants to do that? And you got to be crazy to do it. You got to love it to do it, which is why I continue to do it. But that was number one on my. And you don't even need just you need dedicated certified teachers, because it's a dedication, man. I mean, my goodness, I'm at North Dallas 6 days a week because I have to do the fundraising too, right? I wrote down a list of like my own struggles that I'm sure plenty of schools are dealing with. There was, so dedicated academics. We struggle with those, right? Especially when you only have one coach. So you're telling me too, I gotta check grades too, baby. I gotta player development, right? When you don't have enough coaches, you've got kids just sitting and waiting, and then think about it. Once I go through all of my stuff at the end of practice, we like to at least run for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
A lot of those kids aren't able to get in, right? Because there's just not enough eyes for me, not enough hands on deck. We also have, I'm in an inner city school, as you know. We've got discipline issues, behavioral issues. So also like emotional development, these kids are missing out on with not having coaches. Fundraising, and then also having more guys that are willing to help us team bond, like do stuff outside of school to bring us closer together. So there's just a lot of issues. I think the question was, what can we do to improve high school hoops in lower tier schools? And I'm at a lower tier school. And so those are the issues that I know I deal with. I'm sure a lot of other schools deal with. Bob mentioned facilities. I can't, right now, I have a 9th grade team, but they'll only play on Saturdays in a 9th grade league. So they'll only get about 10 games, and I'll have to coach them. They don't get the JV varsity schedule and get to travel and get on the bus, and there's not enough coaches, and we can't play games at 5:00 because buses can't get to us until 5:15, and that's typically what time freshman games start, at 5, JV 6:30, varsity 8 or 7:30, and we run into a lot of issues there. And ultimately, although you've seen the wins pile up, we could have won more games had I had a full staff. We had multiple gyms, facilities for kids to develop and practice in. And then also,
do they still have the girls' gym upstairs?
So no, sir. So they've turned that upstairs into a theater room and a dance room. But we did keep the old gym, but it's now an auxiliary gym. So there's a floor there, but the goals are on the side basket, so it's not a full court. And our weight room is in there now.
So I have to go check it out, man, because it's been so long.
Check it out, really, especially if we're going to do the pod over, North Dallas. I think it would be great. I have some before photos, but the after photos help. But think about this, Boog and Mike. Prior to us receiving that gym, the most games I had won there was 6. We didn't have a home floor. We played every game on the road. Yeah. But just us getting that gym helped us, win some more games, man. So I wouldn't even give credit to me. You see what happens when you get the right stuff, So
how long have y'all had that gym now so far?
This will be going into our 4th season playing in there.
Nice.
Say. Actually, maybe our third season playing in this gym.
Man,
so Coach Mason, my high school, because when we have it's up in Oklahoma City, it was pretty affluent when I went through there, but now it's considered the poor side of town, and they had a lot of kids that had food insecurity, and Absolutely. So my graduating class and the one before us and the one after, they took donations and did some fundraising so that no kid went hungry. And they did a news story. We didn't do it. I participate only just by donating money, but they one of the one of the broadcasters got a hold of it and they broadcast it on TV. The next thing you know, Devon Energy was donating money for all students to have meals because they didn't want any of their students or athletes to be food insecurity. So, do you have to deal with food insecurity?
So I do. So that's part of why on Saturday. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but North Dallas High School hosted the Swin City League this year.
Mm,
Uh, I don't know if you know, Tony Swindle runs. It's supposed to be like the Drew League, but of Dallas.
right.
And so Tony donated $2,500 to us, which we were very grateful for. That'll go towards food for our kids. And then I opened the gym on Saturdays for a group of older guys that also donate money to us, and I feed them with that as well. So I was
Nice.
able to raise about $4,000 to $5,000, but again, it was all me, man. It was me going up there. It's me opening the gym. It is exhausting, but I love it, man. But yes, I do, Bob. We feed the kids. We make sure that they have meals, but a lot of it is that kind of stuff, the extra fundraising I'm doing on the side. But
So
yeah,
let me offer up this. Uh, a mutual friend of Mike and me is a gentleman named Byron Rogers, and he just actually he goes to Bent Tree Bible Fellowship, uh, and he was just recently appointed elder, and that's who I coached with was with Byron. Well, they go to food banks and get money and distribute it, but one of the things that they're asking all the churches is to sponsor. They didn't have a sports program, and so he's starting up a sports program through Benton Tree Bible Fellowship, and he's asking all the churches to sponsor a school. So I can try to get you in touch with Byron and see if there's something that him and his church can do to support you, even if it's just bringing stuff from the food bank.
absolutely. Now that would be awesome, man. Any help from, like I said, man, dedicated people that want to see these kids thrive and succeed. And I know we all kind of use basketball as a tool, man, because it is a microcosm of life, and there is no, you know, there's no better way for us as junkies of this game to give back and share than through the game of basketball. And so, man, I would love to link up with what was his name again?
Byron.
Byron.
And man, see if they can help in any way, man. These kids deserve any help, man, that they can get. And
Well, and I don't have any kids of my own, but I've said on this podcast various times the three principles. One is 100%. Second is life lessons that you're going to get out of what you put in. And
right,
three, give me your 100%. You might not be able to do as much as some other guy, but give me your 100%. But I
absolutely,
firmly believe that because I was taught when I played hockey is life lessons can be taught through basketball, like you were saying, discipline and just you know authority, respect for authority, and how to behave in a or even check a teammate when a teammate gets out of line.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Now, the fact of the matter is that you guys are pushing forward as far as North Dallas basketball go, and I commend you for what you've been doing for the past 4 or 5 years. And being an alumni of North Dallas basketball, Bulldogs. You know what I mean? I appreciate what you're doing there, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we contribute to as much as we can. Even though I got out of the coaching ranks many years ago, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I still try to contribute the best ways I can to put the stories out there to make sure people know what's going on and kind of give awareness to what needs to be done in certain areas. So again, this has been such a great podcast. I appreciate both of you guys, especially you, Coach Mason, for coming on, giving us your stories. We will have the North Dallas stories for you guys soon. We're going to sit down with Coach Mason and put the story together, kind of like we did with the Kobe story, and give you guys a kind of an insight on what's going on in North Dallas. As he mentioned today, a lot of the things you've heard today will also be mentioned in that story. So we'll make sure that you guys get that in the next few months, and make sure that you guys contribute to North Dallas basketball and any school in your area that's lower tier that needs help. But Coach Mason, as we close out, tell the people where they can find you at social media wise, give them your handles and kind of give you shout outs. Do what you got to do, man.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at MoMace22. Essentially, it's just a basketball page, baby, just a basketball page. And if you would like to reach out to me for North Dallas, you have any ideas of, like I said, it doesn't have to be fiscally, man, nothing financial. It could be just be, we get together at a park, man, and we all fellowship. My email is jermason@dallasisd.org. Feel free to send an email, man. I reach out to everybody. I respond to as many emails as I can. I'd be grateful for that. But before you go, Mike, I do want to give credit to you as well for everything that you've done for North Dallas. A lot of people don't know that, you know, you're Coach Mike for a reason. Mike would go grab kids from the project area around North Dallas, creating the AAU team. And I know you financially had to fund a lot of that stuff yourself. And so for anybody that's reached in their pocket, man, for this place, I'm forever grateful and thankful for you. And Boogey, man, thank you for having me on, man. It was very nice to meet you. Clearly, we love this game and we love these kids and we just want to see it grow. But yeah, man, not too much on me, man. A lot more on you guys and North Dallas, man. That's where the shine belongs. I'm just, you know, a little vessel, man, just trying to help and do my part. But I love that place. I love everything that you've put into it, and I'm very grateful and thankful for you too, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind sentiments, and we'll definitely have you on again, guys, because I know we're going to be getting some comments and saying, "Hey, have him on again." So whenever we get an opportunity, we'll have you on again.
And I promise next time I'm going to be in a brighter room. My girlfriend, this is her office, man, and I didn't know that it wasn't as bright, but yeah, I'll be in a brighter room next time for you guys.
No worries. Boogey Bob, tell the people where they can find you at social media handles and all that good stuff.
Well, they can find me on YouTube at Boogey Bob, and that corner up here, Swish for real. Swish for real. You can find me there. And I just want to shout out, thank you, Coach Mason, for coming on. You know, there's so often people forget that we have more in common than we have apart. We can disagree on a lot of things. And, you know, one of the things that being able to do this podcast when Mike did it is there's a lot of men of faith join on this. It's not that we just join because we love basketball, but he's got a great network, and there's a lot of men of faith, and you know, we try to do our part and grow the boys up into men. So I commend you for what you're doing. Hang in there. Prayers for you, brother. And you know, there's always riches in heaven that you may never see anything on earth, but when you get to heaven, there's going to be riches waiting for you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, Bob. Thank you, man.
All righty, man. Guys, it was been a great show again. Coach Mason, thank you. North Dallas Bulldogs in the building. I'm one of them. Boom, boom, boom. Boogey Bob. Hey, man, it's been a great show. Swish for real. Y'all have a great weekend. And we're out, man. Closing out.
Easy.